Hi, it's Terry here, and I thought I'd get the bike out. Being spring, it needs a bit of a service. So it's been on the road about a year now since I put the 632 engine in. There, as you can see. Now I've had absolutely loads of questions. Some at the rally last year, the Jawa CZ Owners National, and some of the questions are really hard to just answer. So I thought if I do it with a video, especially this HD, it might help. One of the questions was the forks. How did I lower the front end? Another question is the shocks. Now the shocks are much shorter than standard, so the question is how come the rear end has been raised? And the other question, I've just come round here, is about the carburettor. Now I've changed the filter. Now I'll take this off in a bit and show you the filter, because there's a K&N air filter inside there and it's connected to this rubber hose, and obviously the carb's been rejetted. So the question was what type of filter and what jets did I have to use, etc. So there's another one, and there's many more, and I'll go around the bike and we'll consider these. Right, we'll start looking at the forks I think first. Right, to start with, I thought I'd focus on the front end of the bike, because what I wanted to do with this, I needed to lower the front end, and that was purely to just alter the stance of the bike, because the standard height on the Jawa TS was slightly high for what I wanted. So the best way I thought was to lower the front end, and it's worked out pretty well. They actually feel great. Now the forks, I took the springs out, took the two springs out, and I cut 40mm straight off those. Now they are progressive springs, so I took them off the softest side of the spring, but it's all preference. But once you've done that, you do need to add 40mm to the rebound spring, which you'd find inside the leg on the piston shaft. Now once you've done that, that's the front end lowered, and that was the quickest and easiest way. And of course you do need to check the oil level after. It could be that it's different. So the best way that I done that as a good starting point was, obviously now it's on the centre stand, so if you bring the front end right in the air, so the front wheel's off the floor, and remove the caps, take the springs out, and then let the front end drop all the way down, but keep the back end low on the floor, and just let the forks hang. Now the pistons then will be as far as they're going to go at the bottom of the leg, so you can start adding the oil. Now I got a piece of wooden dowel and used it as a dipstick, because the oil in the forks needs to be at least around 5mm above the height of the piston, so that they can function correctly as a hydraulic unit. So anything after about that 5mm is personal preference, whether you want the damping firmer or lighter, but it does need to be above that piston. So that's the best way to know the height. Just use a dipstick in there, a piece of wooden dowel. So that's how I've done that. So that's how I got round lowering the front end to get the stance I wanted. So one of the other questions then was about the rear shocks. Now these rear shocks are slightly lower than the standard Jawa, but I do like this classic look, black and chrome, but they are 12 inches, and of course the back end then was going to be too low. So what I've done, if you look down here, I've changed the mount there at the bottom. Now originally the shock absorber was mounted here on there. Basically it was just the pin that sticks out there, and then the eye of the bush on the shock just mounts straight over, and then a nut. But what I've done here, I don't know whether you can see, it's like a double-sided mount now. There's a plate this side of the shock and one this side, and they're both welded to this box section bracket I've put on there. Now the box section bracket is in and central to the original mount. But basically that is how I got over the problem with using 12-inch shock absorbers. I raised it, and of course because I've actually raised the exhaust as well, I also cut them back as well to come in line roughly with the rim. I don't know whether you can see there, but because I've raised them, the original shocks were down here obviously, and it didn't look quite right, so there was another reason, because I think it just looks better, the stance. Now another question was about the seat rail, because obviously I put my own seat on. Is the seat rail standard, or what have I done? Now if you look at the seat rail, you can see just about here where this bracket is I've welded. The original seat rail came and it went roughly right out here. So what I've done, I heated it up, the chassis there, seat rail, and I've just pulled it in, pulled both sides in, welded this bracket across, not only for strength, it'll hold the seat as well. And then at the back, I've had to form this piece of tube just to bring it round. So I've welded that piece in, because the original seat rail was just open tubes, just one each side. So I've done that so the seat fits round just nicely, because the seat base, not only is it flat obviously along the top of the rail, but it does come over the edge like so all the way around. So that's what I've done there then, and it does work quite well. Now the other thing I've done, I welded these brackets from the seat rail there to hold not only the indicators but to support the rear guard as well as these struts that I made here, and this tapered tube. And looking at the backlight, because I've had a question about the backlight as well. I don't know how you can see this, but you've got this bottom mount here. Now I'll go around the other side of the bike, you might be able to see it a bit better. But it was basically, how did I form it? Yeah. So what I've done first, I made this number plate bracket here, just a flat piece of steel, and then I cut a piece out, a short one, obviously round like that, to fit on the back mudguard. The next thing I've done, I welded a piece of tube from this plate here to the small one that's bolted on the guard, welded a piece of tube there, and then a shorter one at the bottom, just to get the shape. Once I'd done that, I wrapped this sheet steel around it, wrapped it all the way around and welded it together. I'm not sure how well you can see it because it is pretty dark, but that's basically how I got that shape there. Right, so there's a few of the questions answered. I'll go on to the next, which is the carburettor and the settings. Right, so one of the other questions I want to answer in this vid is about the air filter. I think you'll just be able to see it there. So I've fitted a K&N free flow air filter, and then as you can see, I've got the rubber hose here and a connector between the filter and hose, so I can do this clip up. And then just down here there's an elbow which this rubber hose is connected to underneath, and then obviously straight to the carburettor. Now once I fitted this K&N filter, I did need to rejet the carburettor, and that is one of the questions. What jets have I used for the K&N on this model 632? So the main jet that was fitted originally happened to be a 115. Now I've had to up that to a 130 for the simple reason, when you fit a free flow or K&N filter, the main jet has to increase by 15%. So I fitted the 130, and then the pilot jet, as you can see, this brass jet there. Now the pilot was a 0.55 or size 55. Now I've moved that up to a 60, which is 0.6mm, and the needle setting now is on the 4th notch, so I've raised it up onto the 4th notch, and the adjustment on the pilot air is approximately 1.5 turns out. So at these settings it does run really well, and the plugs themselves are a lovely brown colour. So that's the settings for the K&N that work really well for me on this 632. Right, so there is one other thing before I leave you, and that's a question about these, the aluminium downpipe clamps. Now the original ones is just like a steel ring that's castellated, but these alloy thin ones come from India, and they're from the Yazdi 350, the Indian version of the Jawa. Now I don't know of any UK or Czech or any other model that has these. Now I had to import them from India, but I think they go well with the styling of the bike, but obviously it's all personal preference. But that's where they came from anyway, from India, from the Yazdi 350 twin. Right, I'll leave it for now, and hope I've answered the questions enough, and I'll catch you in the next video.